Okay, great. All right, good. 'Cause now we can start. So this is my intention. I mean, I do this, of course, whether we have a meeting or not. But I think I'm going to walk through the reading the lesson four exercises and just talk about them. And I've actually prepared a script that I was going to use to make this video, but we'll take it sort of more informally, and please feel free if you have questions. The reason I opened this file is because on page 78, actually the lesson 4 starts on page 76. It describes the scenario for why we're using these particular project plans, and the very first paragraph on page this is page 76 describes a set of skills. So essentially we're going to be going through the first 3 skills in this week, and then we're going to do the next 4 in week 6. So we're splitting lesson 4 between week 5 and week 6 because it's a pretty big chapter. So we're going to be talking about applying a task calendar to an individual task, changing task types, and splitting a task. Then the following week we'll go over the rest of the chapter. So I've actually I'm on now page 78. There are a number of things that we're going to work on, including dealing with overallocations, changing the types of the tasks, and there's a list of all of the other things, the specifics that we're going to do. So the first thing is we're going to, in page 78, we're going to create a new calendar, and that's so that we can assign a particular task that happens to be that has to be done outside of the normal working hours, something like overnight or on a weekend. It needs a special calendar so that when you try to schedule an overnight shoot, a Microsoft project doesn't come back and say, well, that's not a working hour. The working days are from 8 to 5, scheduled between that, those hours. So we need to create a new calendar. We'll go to project and then change working time. We'll go to create a new calendar, and as it says, create a new. Actually, it's pretty funny. I have some icons on top of my. Hold on a second. On top of my create new calendar button, but you can see that there's a window here that allows you to make a copy of the standard calendar, and we're going to call this overnight overnight beach filming. Okay, we'll click OK. And so notice we have a new calendar, but it's carried forward all the exceptions from the standard or the project calendar, so we don't have to re-enter holidays and all that kind of stuff. But we do want to change the working time. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on work weeks, and that's in step 5. And then we're going to click on details. So what we're doing is we're redefining the work week here, and we're defining it in a couple of ways. On Tuesday through Friday, and I'm going to click set days to these specific times. The times are from, I believe it's, let's see, it says, I guess we're on step 7, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. So we just type 12 a.m., hit the tab key, 3 a.m. Oops, got to go to the next field. 12 a.m. Tab key actually doesn't take you to the next field. You have to click on it, to 3 a.m. And then it was 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Oops, 9 p.m. And the book makes a point that even though it appears that the shooting hours are from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., since that spans a particular day, you have to have all the hours for any given day, not crossing over the midnight hour. So there's essentially 6 hours, but they're all on. So Tuesday, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. and then 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. on. Those are all Tuesday hours. So this helps project figure out how to schedule when this calendar is applied. We also needed to change the Monday hours. So if we click OK, it's going to just make you go back and now choose Monday. And by the way, you can see that Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday are still, they still contain the hours we put in. Monday, let's do a set, and notice it comes up with the old hours. On page 79 rather, step 8, it says change Monday's hours from 9 until midnight. So Monday we're only working from 9 till midnight. Those are the only available hours for this calendar. 9 p.m. 12 a.m. Now, it can be tricky to get rid of these other hours. You just can't go in and hit spacebar because it'll say it's an invalid time. So you have to click on the row itself, on the column, the number 2, and then hit the delete key, and that'll wipe out everything inside. Okay, and the next thing was Saturday. So let's go to Saturday, set hours, and here I think we're only working, and this was, I think I saw in here that we had to change Saturday hours. Oh yes, it's actually step 9. So step 9 goes from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. Okay, click OK. So just going back again, I can see that Monday has those hours, Tuesday through Friday have those hours. So I've set the calendar correctly. We can close it, we click OK. So this takes us down to step 11, because we've closed all the dialogues. Step 11 is step 11 a scene 3 video shoot. So it's this one here. Let's go there. Let's double click it. And it doesn't agree with the task number in the text, but this by the task name I can tell this is one that we'd want to apply a calendar. Go to the Advanced tab. So here is where we can decide that we're going to give it a certain calendar. When it says that the calendar is none, it simply means that it's going to be controlled by any default calendar, which would be the project calendar. But we want to assign it overnight beach filming. We also want to check the schedule resource. Scheduling ignores resource calendars. And the reason why we want to do that is because if you were to apply this task calendar to a task, then you assign some resources who had a calendar that didn't jive with the task calendar, project would come back and say, we can't assign Joe to this task because his calendar doesn't permit him to work at 3 o'clock in the morning. If we check this box, it'll essentially say this is a really special instance, and we want to schedule people even though their resource calendar may not say they can work at this hour. And then it's up to the project manager to make sure that he's got the okay of the person to have him come in at 12 midnight to work for 3 hours. So that takes us down to through 14, 13, 14, and then over on page 80, they show a diagram of what you just see on the screen. And then we click OK. So and watch what happens now to the task over on the left here. A couple of icons have appeared. Number one is that we have an icon that says there's a special calendar applied to this task, so we know that it's under control of a different calendar. And then it talks about over allocations. And that's what these red icons mean. Well, we'll go into over allocations a little bit later. That takes us through, and by the way, the book says, notice that there's a small red human icon, and as it says it goes on, that's something that we'll discuss next week. Any questions so far? And I just want to point out the importance of calendars in Microsoft Project, and a reason why it becomes complicated for people, for project managers quickly, and that's because hold on a second. And let me just get the participants. Okay, I see you're still both on the meeting. Just wanted to make sure. If the project manager does not key in exceptions, vacations, holidays, then Microsoft Project will think that there's more resource availability than it really is. And on the other hand, if all of those exceptions and holidays and every possible reason why you may not have a resource available on a given day, if Project knows all about that, when it starts scheduling tasks, it will give you more realistic end dates for tasks. The last thing you want is assign somebody a task, and 3 weeks into it they say, don't you remember I had this vacation or this procedure or something else, and you didn't have it in Project and it didn't take it into account. So let's go on to changing task types. This is the bottom of page 80. And it's basically making the point that there are three things that can vary when calculating the duration of a project, or how much work there is, and I should say the duration of a task, not a project. The duration of a task, the duration of or the number of hours of actual work the task involves. So I think fixed unit, fixed duration, and fixed work pretty much indicates what the possibilities are. And then the formula work equals duration times units, W equals D times U. Essentially, if you hold one of those variables fixed, then the other two have to vary inversely to the other. If one goes up, the other has to go down. If duration is fixed, then if you raise the number of units, then the work is going to be raised. So going on to the middle of page 81, where it talks about changing the work values, then it goes to the View tab, and we open a new screen. Let's go to the View tab, Task Usage. Okay. And then it's asking us to press F5, and this is simply a way of locating a task quickly. So I'm going to type in F5, type the number 4, and it'll take us right. It'll make that task the top of the stack. If it turns out that you have 100 or 200 tasks on a Gantt chart, then this is going to be pretty handy. Let's see, auto-fit the task name. Well, that's simply an Excel type of operation. You put your cursor on the divider line between the columns, you double-click, and it automatically expands. That's called auto-fit. And then we want to drag this split column until we can see the start column, or rather the split bar. So there's start. Okay. Then it wants us to add a column that's not on here, and the way to add a column is simply to right-click on the column heading of the column you want to add, that you want to be on the right of the new column. So insert column, it inserts a column to the left, and then it asks for column name. We want assignment units, so that happens to be in View, but you notice that there's just a boatload of various fields that you could put in column headings, and if you need to search for one, all you have to actually do is start typing in the first letter and the second letter, and it'll just auto find what you want. But now that I see it, I'll just click it. Assignment units. Okay. We're focusing on task 4 because we're going to do some things to task 4 to change its the type of task it is. Right now we have 80 hours of work, two people working 40 hours, and the duration is 1.2 weeks. they're working at 100%, and it just turns out that 100% of these people's times over 1.2 weeks is 40 hours. So maybe they only work 32 hours a week, which is why it's taking more than 1 week. So we can. There's a distinct point to make here, and that is, and I want you to remember back to when we were in last week's video where we were adding people to a task, and then project came up and gave us the actions button, which had 3 choices. Essentially, those 3 choices were: do you want this to be fixed unit, fixed duration, or fixed work? In a nutshell. So whenever you add resources, project will automatically ask you the question about what you really want to do. That's not always the case. Sometimes in certain situations the project has enough information to figure out what you want to do. But here's a case where it's going to have that consequence of asking you to change something. So let's see what it says. In the duration field, that's up here, we'll select it, and we'll just scroll up to 2 weeks. Okay, now I won't hit enter yet. Let's see what a project might think. Is it saying that there's really going to be more work here, or is it going to take longer, but the people are going to be working still only 40 hours over the 2 weeks, which means they're going to be working less hard over each particular day on the project? So let's hit enter. Okay, so what did it do? It is presumed offhand that you are going to up the amount of work. So now these people are working, instead of 40 hours and 40 hours, they're working more, and now the total work has gone to 136. But is that what you really want to do? So here's the actions button. Okay. So notice the default is the radio button that's chosen. It decided that you wanted to increase the work, but keep the resources units the same. Notice how they're still at 100%. Okay. Oh, you want to send them in? Okay. I have another student joining us. John Allen is coming in. But according to the book, it says you want to increase the duration but keep the work the same. Okay, so that's this button here. We want to click it and let's see what happens. It puts them back to 40 hours, and it reduced their units. So to keep the work the same, while the duration went up, it had to bring the units down. I'm going to take a quick break. John, you want to have a seat? I'm actually into probably halfway through. What's that? Chapter 4. Yeah, and I'm recording. I have Christopher Boss and David Ness on the line, and I'm recording this, so you'll be able to review. Yeah, it's recording. You'll be able to review what we've done so far. We're going through the changing of the duration of a task using the task usage screen, which is on the View tab. So this essentially lists all the people in every task, who's assigned, how much work they're assigned, and it allows you to change. Notice that we have the big 3, the W, the D, and the U here, work, duration, units. And we've shown that we can decide, if we change the duration, we can decide whether we are changing the duration because we think there's more work to be done, and therefore it's more than 80 hours, it's really 160 hours. Or we can say, it's really the same amount of work, I'm just spreading it out over time, and therefore keep the work hours the same. But to do so, if I tell you that you have a week to do something, and then all of a sudden and you're going to have to work full time, 40 hours. And then I say, yeah, you really have 2 weeks. And you go, oh man, now I can just, I can goof off for half the time. Now I really only have to work 50% of my time. That's exactly what the work equal duration times units formula is. That's the situation that it's describing. So what we've done here is we've asked the system to increase the duration of a task. This project came back and asked us. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you got a little ahead of us, and I'll talk to you about that afterwards. So this takes us down to the bottom of page 81. So let's flip over to 82. Actually, we've done item 7, which was selecting the second of those two radio buttons on the actions button. So we did step A too. So we're actually through the middle of page 82. We've done all the steps right through step 8. I've chosen the selection that had the units decreased so that the work would remain the same. So I increased the duration, I decreased the units of work so that D times U still equals 80 hours. And that's probably beating a dead horse now. So, but that formula is at the heart of all of this. So then at the bottom of page 82, it has a table here, which is, you don't really have to know in detail, but it would be good to, well, let me say this, you don't have to memorize it, but it would be good to understand why those scenarios make sense. In other words, if you have a fixed duration task and you change the duration, project recalculates the work, and if you change the work, project recalculates the duration. So it's essentially a grid that confirms that you understand all the ramifications of changing one and holding the other fixed and so forth. It's probably more information than you need to know right now about all the possibilities. As long as you understand that scenario that we just worked through on pages 81 and 82, you'll have a pretty good idea of what you need. Okay, so that's one way to that's yet another way of Microsoft Project prompting you when you make a change. You know, what is it you really want to do? Do you want this to be fixed work, fixed duration? It's always checking. In old versions of Project, it just made some assumptions, and it didn't ask you about all these. It didn't give you all of these prompts to confirm that you were doing what you thought you needed to do, and that's what made Project in the old days pretty frustrating, because you had less control over changing the task type as you needed. So now let's look at page 83. It says switch back to the Gantt chart view, so we'll do that. And you can see this, right? Okay. Switch back to the Gantt chart view, and then press F5 again. Just a simple way to quickly locate a task, and type 6. Well, obviously we could have found 6 without having doing this, but they're just making a point. So now we're going to look at this task. If we double-click the task, that's the quickest way to get to the task information dialog, where you can go into all sorts of information, all the tabs and so forth. But we're going to go to the Advanced tab again. Notice you can actually change the task type from fixed units to fixed duration to fixed work, and also notice that the default value is fixed units. So that means that Microsoft Project has made some default value for all tasks. You can go into the options, configuration options, and set your tasks to come in initially as fixed duration or fixed work. This is just what it is now. So it says select fixed duration, so we want to change it from fixed units to fixed duration. So we're just following along here. And then click the Resources tab. Whoops. Let's get the Resources tab up here. Okay. Then it says, in the Units column, set the values for Jeff Pike to 50% and Ryan to 75%. Okay, and then we look to see that our screens look about the same, and they do. I'm looking at the bottom of page 83. And click OK. And then it says note that the duration of the task did not change. So we put in fixed duration. We changed the units. So that means, let's think ahead. If we say it's a fixed duration task, that means D is going to be fixed. It won't change. Whatever value it is, it's fixed now. So what happens if you change the units? That means that work has to change. If the units go up, work's going to go up. If the units went down, work's going to go down. That's because D is constant, and the W and the U on either side of the D, one goes up, the other has to go down to keep D constant. Well, what we did was we changed the units. So let's see if the work changes, and let's see the duration. And actually, I don't. You know what I didn't do, and it doesn't tell us to. I'm going to hit the back button for a second. I want to see what the amount of work for this task was. So this is a little extra. Okay. Let's go to. I'm going I'm going Maverick here. Going Rogue here. I'm going to poke around a little bit to find out some other information. Number 6, 400 hours. Okay, so that's how much work there is based on these values. Now let's go back to the Gantt chart. Let's go back to the task. Let's go to advanced. Let's make this fixed duration. Okay, and now let's go back in there. Actually, I didn't have to exit. I could have gone right to the resources tab. Change this guy to 50 and this guy to 75. Okay. Click OK. And now let's go back and see how many hours task 6 has become. It's gone to 421.43 hours. So the work has gone up because the units went up. We lowered one guy from 57 to 50% units, but then we increased the other one from 57 to 75%. So essentially we put more manpower on this task, and therefore, because the duration has been kept constant, the work has gone up. So that is an explanation for the changing the task type. And again, almost beating a dead horse, but again, you can decide that you're going to keep any one of these parameters fixed: work, duration, or units, and the other two have to change. And it's important to understand how Microsoft Project is going to do that for you, because the scheduling engine can get pretty complicated. And when you put in a task and you assign some resources and you look at the Gantt chart and you go, "What? I can't believe it's good. What? How they decide that it's going to end 3 months from now?" And then you look and you realize that Microsoft Project knew stuff you didn't or had forgotten that you put in. Let's finish up by going to splitting a task, and this is now at the bottom of page 84. Task 5 they want us. Let's go back to the Gantt chart. They want us to look at task 5, develop production layouts. It turns out that this Control F, and I'm going to close the chat window here so I can get more real estate. It turns out that if let's say you're down here, okay, and you're all the way, oops, I don't want to do that. So now you don't see anything on your chart, so you scroll over, okay, and now you see this, but you're down at task 32, and you want to get back to task 6, and you don't want to have to scroll up and down, so you can go Control F5, Control Shift F5, let's see, so it says Control Shift F5. I'm sorry. It's this is what they're talking about. Let's say that you see task 5 on your chart, but you don't see the task bar. If I select task 5 and hit Control Shift F5, it's going to swing the Gantt chart into view right at that task. Okay, so now it's talking about changing the zoom. I'm going to actually slide this over. There's a couple of ways to change the resolution or the zoom level. You could go to the zoom group in the view tab, or you can simply, and it's a little bit hard for me to see here, you can use the plus and minus zoom. Notice how as I zoom in, the dates on the top get well, right now I'm going into Thursday. Right now it's going down to individual hours: 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock on a given day. That's way zoomed in. And now I've just zoomed way out because I've taken the slider. But at any rate, there's a lot of ways to zoom in and out. The reason why we want to zoom in enough is because if we want to split a task, we want to have a really good picture of where we want to move it to. So let's do what they say. On the View tab in the Zoom group, in the selection box below the time scale, here's where we want to select days. So this is sort of another way to get the right resolution on your Gantt chart. And now task 6 is a big fat, takes up almost the whole page. And actually I think that's a little too zoomed in, so I'm going to zoom out a bit. There we go. And this is really personal preference. So here's task 6. Okay, so now how do we split it? Why would we split a task? The reason why you might split a task is if somebody is working on a task and you need that person for a more important task, you need to pull them off, and you tell them, well, you just finish. You'll get back to your task when you finish this one. So now they got to stop what they're doing. You wouldn't do it for lunchtime because lunch is too fine a control over when work is being done. You're working at days at a time. But this would be like put down your shovel and come back in 2 weeks. So we need to have a way to take a task and split it. So, and this is really all there is to it. You hover the mouse over and I know that on the WebEx, some of these cursor shapes don't show up like they do when it's live. But if I right-click the mouse, I get a floating menu with a split icon. So I click that. And now, if I put my cursor over the bar, you'll notice that the date, I see Tuesday 3/8 is the date that if I wanted to split, I could just hold my left mouse button down and select it. But let's say I want to split it on Friday, let's say Monday. It probably tells me what to do here, but I'll just choose anyone. Yeah, it says Tuesday 2/9. So I guess let's go back. Tuesday 2/9. Oh, actually, I'm on the run. Should I be on task 5? Oh, that's right. I should be on task 5. So let's go to task 5. It's this one here. And I'm going to just zoom in a little bit to make it a little bit bigger here. Okay, task 5. Right-click, get the split icon, put my mouse over, and now move this to Tuesday 2/9. So let's say that means I want to hold the left mouse button down. Oops. I got to click and make sure I'm still on the bar. Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to left click, and I'm going to drag this out, and it says drag it to 212. Okay, I'm going to let go. So what it did was the last day of work is here. It puts dotted lines here, and then on 212, the task will resume. And if you put your mouse over the taskbar, it'll usually bring up the tooltip, which will show you the particulars of that. We could also look here. Actually, the start and end date are still, well, they're different now. Their end date's been moved out, but the split can be seen not only from the timeline. So essentially, we're taking like a 4-day hiatus. And that's how we split a task. Now, I'll just add, because we're pretty much done. Splitting tasks is something that is Microsoft Project will do automatically if you ask it to level over allocations. And that simply means that you tell Microsoft Project that you want any task that has too many people or too many hours allocated to it for a given person, you want to essentially repack the grocery bag so that everything fits better. Which means, let's say, here's the analogy: you have 5 grocery bags, and they're all pretty full, but they're not all full. Some can be packed better, so that you can essentially rearrange the way your resources are allocated. And to do that, you may have Microsoft Project may have to split a task to free up somebody, so to reduce their over allocation. In other words, it might say, you're over allocated for these 2 weeks, but if we just move that second task out to start a week later, or stop working on it now and start it again in 2 weeks, then you'll be leveled, which is the term used to say that everybody has just the amount of work that their calendar says they're supposed to. So while we can split tasks manually, more often Microsoft Project, when you choose the level allocations, hold on, that's not right, that's the wrong screen. If you go to project, I'm sorry, a resource, and we go to leveling, we'll see that there's a way for Microsoft Project to go in and make adjustments to the schedule. In some ways, there are some things it won't do. It won't unassign people. It won't from a task. It won't assign people to a new task, and it won't change the number of work hours. You know, if the task is 500 hours, it's still 500 hours. Microsoft Project will only work with start dates and end dates, and moving things around. So let's. I think we've covered it in pretty detailed fashion. Let me get the participants back. Oh, hold on a second. There we go. It's down here. So, Christopher and David, I hope this was helpful to you, and John, hopefully it was useful to you as well. And as soon as I'm done, I will process the video and put it up in our class so you can watch it from the beginning. David, Chris, do you have any questions at this time?
Actually, other than we can resubmit these once we realize like where we made our mistakes or.
Well, yeah, yes. I mean, the idea is, of course, this is for material we haven't done yet. This is the current week's chapter. If you are you referring to previous week's assignments, or have you? Yeah, you can resubmit it, and depending on the situation, I may be able to give you more credit.
Well, where you spotted the whole split.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Not before, so I just the splitting portion.
Yeah.
I kept doing it in a way where I, really look at it. I click on it, click split, separate it three more, separate it. I didn't see that then.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I was just curious how it that. Being that this one was early, I was able to redo, or once it's in, it's our grade or what.
Well, you've raised an interesting point. I want to be clear. When you submit your assignments and you get a grade, and then you decide that you want to do it correctly for your own benefit, then typically there's not more credit given. So I don't have to regrade things twice. But on the other hand, if you from time to time, if you've just done something, really got off on the wrong foot and did the wrong assignment, or just had the wrong idea about what needed to be done, then on those cases, I'll permit you to redo it for credit. In other words, if you got a pretty low grade and don't want to stick with that. But if you got if you got something like an 85%, whatever point represented 85%, and you wanted to go for 95 after I've shown you the error of your ways, then that's not a situation I would give you. I would not give you more credit there. So, as a matter of fact, the course syllabus I don't think has any indication about resubmissions for additional credit. So those are,
I was double checking on that. It was more along, for example, like I actually had thought I was behind a week. I must have submitted two things within time.
oh,
Because we're about 2 weeks ago I was sick, so I was like trying to get everything caught up in
oh,
time frame.
gotcha.
And then even with it where we're at, what you're discussing, it's like
Yeah.
I already did this.
Right, that's why. Yeah, I think you're not the only one who had that trouble. But yeah, in that case, I would certainly consider that. I would just grade it as if you did it for the first time, and
Okay.
I'll make sure
Alright.
I'll make sure I keep my eye on that when I'm doing the grading. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, anything else?
Other than I guess we have to go back to that website to get a hold of the actual program still running a trial version.
Yeah, that should be something that should be straightforward. Although there has been sporadic problems with people having different issues, but that's typically more of a local issue to them rather than issue with the download and the software itself.
What I've had maybe is actually Microsoft has told me is you can't use Google or Mozilla to go ahead and download the files. You have to use Internet Explorer to access them.
Huh. That could be. I can't remember if there are instructions in the material you get from the admin here as to.
Because I got it from all of them and they got
Yeah.
running.
Yeah. Well, let me know if you have. Let me know if you have any problems with that going forward, and we'll make sure we solve that problem.